Hey guys! Welcome to this video. My name is Ami Tori and I make art videos and fun little draw with me content, so come along for the ride. We're almost done with this sketchbook. I'm so excited to show it to you guys. It's been a long time in the making. I think it's been since April of 2022. That's kind of crazy. Yeah, so basically today I just kind of wanted to do some fun little sketches because it's been a really long time since I've been able or had the energy to do fun sketches. And while I do that, I was thinking I might do some voiceover discussion of kind of what to expect for animation school and some tips that I have and advice that I might have to myself back when I was starting. I'm going into my senior year of animation school. I'm about to graduate, and so I just have thought that I would share some of my thoughts and experiences with you guys. That's what this is going to be for and about. And so I think that I do have a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to be drawing today, and I think that will be some webtoon fan art. So it's been a long time since I've drawn fan art, and so I've been really into webtoon recently. I've been reading all kinds of webtoons. I've also been trying to add more color and fun stuff to my sketchbook. I know I just actually finished watching Sherry Cat's sketchbook tour, and I'm just really inspired by all of the colors and everything that she was able to use, and how bright all of her work is, and just how much fun she has with her sketchbook. I remember a time when I would just spend hours and hours and hours drawing in my sketchbook, and it was so much fun, and I just really want to relight that again. And of course, I'm not going to have the same kind of time that I did in that period of my life, but I think that I can set aside time here and there to try to work on that. But I think that I might skip this page for now, come back to this page later, and use this page if I shape this correctly. Look at how nice it looks. It looks so good here. Oh my gosh, it's so symmetrical. Okay, but yeah, anyway, we're gonna get into it and I will continue drawing. Yay! Okay guys, I'm gonna be very real with you. I was intending for this video to be what to expect from animation school, what it kind of looks like, but this is more the top 3 pieces of advice that I have for people going into animation school to kind of avoid some of the bad habits that I fell into, and some things that kind of didn't help my artistic growth from just the overall environment of animation school. And so I'm not gonna be highlighting the really fun things about animation school, because that's not really what this video is for. So don't take this as me being super negative about it. I am so glad that I chose to go to animation school. I learned so much, and I'll talk about that later, but there are things that I probably would have liked to have been warned about / explained to beforehand. So yeah, stay tuned for that. All right. So number 1, I have my notes here. Oh my gosh, so professional. Number 1, you get what you put into assignments. So basically what this means is that when I got into animation school, I realized that all of my assignments asked for an indefinite amount of work. And what I mean by this is that if 2 artists, for example, work on the same character design assignment that requires 5 expressions, let's say that, and 5 action poses, artist A can spend 3 hours on it, and artist B can spend 8 hours on their assignment, and both will be good enough to pass with an A or a B. Although artist B will get more praise than the other because more time equals better quality. And so, as a teacher's pet and kind of a perfectionist to myself, I had an incredibly hard time managing my schedule because I was so opposed to cutting my potential quality. And if I wanted to, I could spend forever and ever on one assignment, but that would be completely detrimental to my other work and my free time and cough cough my sleep schedule. So I had to learn to bite the bullet and limit the amount of time I spent on assignments. And I had to learn to remind myself that school is still just school. And as I do plan to work hard at it, I can still put a ton of this like extra drive and time I have into my long-term endeavors like this channel and developing my brain as an artist. And I also had to kind of figure out how, like, which classes were going to be more helpful for my long-term career goals and which assignments I needed to put more of my time and effort towards for portfolio pieces. Like, for example, all animation students are, at least from where I go, like, are required to take one CG modeling course. Am I going to spend 8 hours modeling this chair? Probably not. I'm gonna model the chair and get it over with so I can submit it, so I can work on something else and have a healthy sleep schedule and be fine. Like, that's probably what I'm gonna do. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from that bit. But anyway, moving on. Number 2. Okay, this one's a big one. This one I'm pretty passionate about, and it's still a struggle, but do not succumb to the sleep schedule battle. So, I don't know how common this is, but amongst the college crowd I've experienced, I've recognized that there is always this weird underlying pity competition for whoever stayed up the latest the night before, or who has pulled the most like all-nighters. Either that or it's some kind of pride thing, because a lot of recognition goes to those that work the hardest on their assignments and stay up super late to get all of that work done. And it kind of shows, like, when you submit something, like, oh, you spent 15 hours on this, whereas you were supposed to only spend like 5. But obviously because of that, you made this really cool, amazing thing, and now we're all going to praise you for it because, like, it's really cool and amazing. But, like, that's not, like, I cannot, like, you cannot set yourself, like, in comparison to that, because you need to be able to have a healthy sleep schedule. So, like, for example, I quickly felt, like, because of that, I quickly felt inferior to my classmates, or like I was some kind of slacker if I had a normal and healthy sleep schedule. So I matched my lifestyle to those in my class that were doing, like, the super cool work, for that kind of social pat on the back, but also, like, to feel better about myself, to think that, like, oh, well, yeah, like, I'm also working super hard. And this felt, like, nice and reassuring for a while, but then I kind of started to experience the terrible brain fog and sluggishness that comes from not getting enough sleep. Plus, people are always pushing for later and later and better, and so the competition just never really stops. And I get it. College is extremely difficult and intense sometimes, but it should never be so intense that it becomes a detriment to your physical and emotional well-being. After I stopped placing my work above my health and allowed myself to fudge an assignment here and there for the sake of my sleep or free time, sorry professors, my mind became sharper, I stopped feeling so burnt out all the time, I became less anxious, more positive, and had so much more energy to put my all into work that I did do. I needed to be able to go out with friends and family and spend time playing games or painting my nails. And that does not mean that I'm slacking or don't care about my career. It's hard to manage time and get things done, I get it. Which is also why it's super easy to push assignments until the nighttime. But if you can, I strongly suggest trying your absolute gosh darn hardest to get most of your work done in the morning or early afternoon, and then set some off, like, quote unquote off hours to wind down at night. And if you can make this a habit, you won't be as tempted to stay up late working and then wind down at 3 a.m. when you finally got that project submitted. And I will admit, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, because there are always gonna be, like, super tough weeks, like midterms, finals, like quarter terms or whatever. Some classes are weird, but I feel like that should not be your normal. Like, that should not be your, like, every other day, you know? Like, that's what I'm trying to say here. And some people will look at me and be like, you're crazy. Like, you're just trying to say this to make yourself feel better. But, like, I feel like this still, like, I've just been around this culture for so long that, like, if I'm not, like, if I'm getting more, then 6 hours of sleep a night, then like I must not be caring about my school or something. It's like, it's just crazy. But like, that's the thing though, is that if you do this, then you set an example for your future employers, because like what's going to happen is that you're going to get so used to living by that sleep schedule and working by that sleep schedule that if like you're just going to keep doing that, and then when you pick up work, you're going to do that for your work because that's what you're comfortable with, and then employers are going to expect that from you. And then once you get old enough to the point where you cannot do that anymore, or you recognize how terrible it's making you feel, then it's going to be so much harder to lessen, because it's going to lessen like some of the quality of your work, because you're not going to have as much time to get stuff done. But you shouldn't have all of that extra time anyway. That's time for sleep. But another thing about this too is that when you are depriving yourself of sleep, you're not going to be working to the same level of quality as somebody at their best. And so you need to keep that into consideration, because like sometimes staying up all hours of the night isn't gonna equal better quality work. So yeah, but anyway, moving on. The next bullet point that I have, the last but not least, is your professors are cool, but they do not have the final say. So again, I know that everything I'm saying sounds like I am on a pedestal and I like am acting like I know everything about like everything. No, absolutely not. Like, your experience is probably going to be so much different than mine. I am learning new things every day. Like, that is not, I don't want to sound like that. But one thing I will say is that it took me until the end of sophomore year to learn this about like the way that I experience classes and things like that. But I do not have to shape my artwork around what my professors like in order to be successful. I have a lot of extremely experienced, really cool professors that are currently working in the industry, which is really uncommon. And they have helped me grow my art exponentially from when I got here. But I will say that they tend to like and dislike, like the things that they tend to like and dislike about my art and what is objectively well done or poorly executed are not the same thing. So, for example, I love drawing characters that are more realistic and aesthetically, like, quote-unquote pretty, with a lot of inspiration from the anime and webcomics I grew up consuming. This is what I'm passionate about. I love doing this. This has nothing to do with my understanding of the fundamentals, as it is a preference of subject matter. I personally believe that East Asian art styles can make use of shape language and design diversity without having to push it into being more cartoony to have nice shape language and nice character design. A lot of my professors would disagree with this notion. Therefore, they just have a base level respect for anime's existence, but personal distaste for those art styles, which is so fair, you know? Like, they do not have to like anime. Now, contrary to what I hear most often about art teachers bashing students for liking anime, my professors actually handled the subject pretty well in the classroom and did their best to give critiques on fundamentals and not personal taste. Although, as a teacher's pet, like I've said multiple times, which I'm not proud of, but I aim to please, I subconsciously strive to personally please them with every assignment I submitted, therefore running into an identity crisis halfway through school because I realized that even though my professors liked what I was making, I hated it all. And I didn't want it in my portfolio, like, at all. Which essentially rendered all of my assignments useless, minus, of course, what I learned from making them. So then I just started making what I wanted. I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I want to make what I want to make, right? Like, I want to make something that when it goes up on the screen and it's being critiqued in class, regardless of what the professor says about whether or not like they like it, how they respond to it, whether or not they smile at it, I'm going to be proud of it. because that's what's important. And so I am a million times happier with who I am as an artist after doing that, and after being able to just be unapologetically myself in what I want to make. And of course, this is not without saying, I'm not trying to make the argument that like, oh, it's my art style. Like, no, like I have a lot of things to grow as far as my proportion and anatomy understanding is concerned, my fundamentals, composition, like all of these things. And I'm not just upset because a professor told me like, oh yeah, like this is something that's common in anime and your arms are too long or something like that. Like, no, like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that a lot of my professors just really enjoy very like American style cartoony drawings, and that's just not what I like to draw. And naturally, everybody is going to have a different reaction to something. Like, a professor isn't going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, when they see something that they just personally do not really care for or like consuming. Like, that's just, you can't expect anybody to not do that. So, but because of that, I kind of put that pressure on myself to strive for that response from everything. And then it just kind of subconsciously turned my artwork into something that I just didn't really like. And so, yeah. And so now I make whatever I want, and with the consideration of what's going to work in the industry, because that's another thing, is that I'm not just throwing out the idea of like, I am trying to make a business here, I am trying to make money, make a living off of what I'm making. And if any professor was like, you're not going to be able to make a living off of this, I would take that very seriously. And I have. And I know, though, I have the utmost confidence that I have a niche and I can find work with my style. Like, I'm not worried about that. So yeah. But anyway, overall, I know these were all kind of, like I said, negative, but animation school has genuinely been integral in helping me understand the industry and have any sort of connections at all. Like, for getting into the industry, because I come from a place where there really isn't anything animation-wise. And so, yay. But also, as a final word of advice, like, and this just goes for college in general, but if you're like going into your first year of animation school, it gets super exciting to meet all of your fellow animation people and hang out and do art together and stuff. But I highly recommend trying to make friends outside of your major too. If I didn't have my English and nursing major friends to tell me to get a life outside of animation and that staying up until 2 to 3 a.m. every other night to finish assignments was not normal, I probably would have had a much less life-giving experience going to school. And so I definitely highly recommend making a lot of friends that have a lot of other experiences. And again, I understand a lot of like animation schools and stuff and like art schools and whatnot are like solely animation and art schools. And if you're going to something like that, this can be a lot harder. And in that sense, I would say definitely keep in contact with people online. Keep in contact with people just outside of your college or your university or your academy or whatever you're going to, just so that you can always have a control for what you're experiencing. Because I feel like every college, every group of people have a bubble, and it can be really hard to get out of that bubble. And so I definitely think that, especially with colleges that have multiple different like majors, it's really important to get all the different sides of things and the experiences. So yeah, anyway, that's all I have to say for this. I hope you guys enjoyed the speed paint. I hope that this wasn't too like put off or anything. I know it's like a little bit of a slower speed paint because the voiceover ended up being so much longer, but I hope that wasn't boring or anything and you guys enjoyed listening to me yap about school. But I'm genuinely so excited to go into my final year. I cannot wait for you guys to see my capstone film. It's gonna be so much fun. But yeah, anyway, let me know if you guys can guess who these characters are. I was going to talk about them, but I don't think I have time anymore, so yeah, see if you guys can spot the webtoon character. These were really fun though. I want to make more fan art at some point soon too, but yeah. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Bye bye!